Hey.
Oh, there I go. Lovely.
Oh, welcome.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Oh, it's nice to see you again, for sure.
Yes, thank you. Same here. Same here.
All right. I've let everybody know we'll be starting the talk at 6:30. In the meantime, we're just going to get a quick getting to know you.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very welcome to go and grab a drink and stretch their legs in between as well. So yes, that's what I've said.
Good.
So Sarah, I normally ask everybody what their favorite animal is. So to shake things up, I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite meal?
Oh, my favorite meal. Oh, that's interesting because I have my animal, just as you said that, I had my animal ready. Well, it's quite interesting. I am definitely not a cook. I have, my philosophy is if it takes me longer to cook it than eat it, then I probably won't go there. So I like simple, easy meals. I like salads with potato or salads with something like that. I'm definitely someone who likes their food deconstructed. So separate things I like, mainly because, as I say, if I have to put them all together and then cook it for half an hour, like a lasagna, I probably will never go for that option. I'll probably just cook a batch of spaghetti and have some olive oil and or black olives and some pepper.
If we were to host you,
okay,
what would be your favorite meal then?
Oh, how lovely. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. One I hadn't really thought of. You know, okay, here's another thing.
Okay.
So you can see this next time I'm in London. Because I live by myself, I rarely put the oven on. And I don't have a microwave these days. It broke down last summer and I never renewed it. I thought, let me just see how, can I manage with this? So I rarely have a baked potato.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Roast potatoes or baked potatoes. So if I were to come and visit you, I would squeal with delight at roast potatoes or baked potatoes with a big salad or some vegetables, something like that. Oh, yeah. Okay. And actually, I visit, we have a little inner space in Manchester, a big inner space in Manchester, and I do go there quite a lot. And I have noticed that they do put roast potatoes on when I visit, and I think I did let that slip at one point, and yeah, so that's really nice.
And for dessert, what would you like for dessert?
I'm not really a cake girl. I'm not an ice cream girl. A nice coffee with a snappy biscuit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not a cheesecake girl. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't eat those things, but they wouldn't be first on my list. I like a yogurt. I've recently discovered mango coulis, you know, the lovely sweet thing that you drizzle. I like a bit of mango passion fruit twist to it. Oh yeah, you've really got me there. I haven't really thought about that. Probably like many people, I tend to cook the same kind of things. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this question, but it's for two parts. Excuse me. The first part is, what's your greatest challenge at the moment?
Oh, my greatest challenge at the moment. Well, that's a very nice question, and I'll share it with an open heart. Because we've been in lockdown, I have, as I mentioned, I've been living by myself, which I love. And I suppose I'm coming from that perspective this evening, certainly in terms of self-care. And I've really enjoyed this time of silence and solitude and stillness. It really floats my boat. And then what I've had to do, I suppose, in that time, like many others, is also go to work, and that's online, and it's also physically going out to some of these schools that I'm connected with. And maybe the biggest challenge has been to shift my headspace from, I've been trying to experiment with a deeper form of meditation, actually, which I've been really enjoying, and trying to stay with that vibe a little bit longer and a little bit more. I've been doing lots of research online. I'm sure some of your guests will have been the same. Just trying to find out, you know, what does that mean, and what does that mean, and how does that work? And I've really enjoyed it. It's been like I've had a little retreat. And again, perhaps many of your guests will have been on little retreats, maybe, I don't know. And then suddenly it's like, oh, okay, get my proper clothes back on and get out the door and drive to work with these hoppity skippity children and sometimes very moody teenagers, and trying to get them re-engaged. And I've had to really shift my headspace. So I haven't had the challenge of feeling isolated in that sense. And perhaps I'll mention that later on, because I know some people will have had that. For myself, it's been sort of flicking that switch from being really enjoying that quiet to suddenly being Mrs. Extrovert. Here I am, everyone. Let's go and paint and play games. So that's been an interesting thing going on there.
Okay. I was going to ask you what's your biggest challenge in your life until now, but I'm going to change that question and say, what has given you the greatest joy in your life?
Oh, okay.
And just for everybody who has joined us and are listening in, Sarah didn't know I was going to ask her all of these questions. I'd actually promised to ask her a whole pile of different questions.
Yes,
So we really are getting the nitty-gritty of Sarah.
Yeah. So the greatest challenge, no, tell me again what I'm...
Joy.
The greatest joy.
What's been the cause of your greatest joy?
Okay. Today, I will say what it is today, and probably if you'd asked me it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I might have answered differently, and in 5 years' time, I might answer differently. But I have to say, at this current time, it has been watching nature, and maybe again, many of those online will feel the same. I am really fortunate. I have this beautiful flat, and the windows, which I'm looking at right now. So if I end up staring out the window, everybody, it's just because I can see this blue sky. And I think lockdown happened just when things were still, so I'm in Newcastle, and we're probably a few days stroke weeks behind the south of England in terms of nature, crops and nature and all of that, sort of the seasons, which I hadn't really realized, but that's how it is. So I have actually been able to, in these last 6 weeks, watch the twigs on the tree change to full-blown green. Frost turn to sunshine, quiet birdies turn to really noisy birdies. And I think that's probably like many of you who have had to stay at home and have been able to stay indoors rather than still go out to work, because I know there are people. So the greatest joy has been reconnecting with nature. And I know there's been a lot of news about around the world, this sort of phenomena of seeing the skies cleaner and the animals take over the cities.
Yes.
I've really loved that, and I've been walking every day quite early. So about 7 o'clock every morning, I've been out, had a good walk, about an hour or so, and that's been delightful, because that has been quite rare to have this. And again, I'm sure that I share that with a lot of you online at the minute. It has been a really rare moment to connect in that way, so consistently every day, not just a random Saturday or a Sunday afternoon,
Yeah. Just to have the space to make it consistent. Yeah.
And I suppose on that, just if I may just say on that, someone said to me a long time ago, and I actually do believe it was Mike George, who I know you had on a little while ago. I remember years and years ago, and this is stuck in my mind, there's not enough beauty in the world. And I remember, I think I just started meditating, which is a practice I do regularly, and that really stuck for me. And it came back to me just as in these last 6 weeks. Oh my goodness, that if I look for the beauty, it is there. Is it that I don't look for the beauty in the world? And I think, he was right in the sense that maybe there might have been a bit of an imbalance. There is an imbalance, perhaps. Not just beauty in terms of what we might say is beauty, not so that, but really looking for beauty. Yeah, the greatest joy has been looking for beauty, and I found it.
All right, so then I'm going to go back to the question that I started with a little bit earlier, which was, I asked you what's your current challenge. Now I'm going to ask you, what's the greatest lesson that you've learned
Oh.
for yourself?
The greatest lesson I have learned for myself. So that has involved getting to know myself, and still a work in progress. But I have noticed that I will create scenarios in my head, and they look a bit doomy and gloomy. So that whole thing about, is it 80% of the thoughts that we have never come to fruition, or all the waste thoughts that go round and round? It could be like this, it might be like this. Oh, I bet it'll be like that. The sort of default almost to a negative or a pessimistic, I think because of habits. I mean, I've had a very good life, but obviously still there are habits and of thinking that assume the worst. So maybe what I've really learned for myself, and again, this has been a sort of reflective practice, professionally as well as personally, that as I've got to know the habits that I have, is like, oh, just stop. What proof do you have for that it's actually going to work out? Because if you look back, Sarah, generally it just didn't. Things always worked. They've always worked out. So why do you think it won't work out? So it's been quite nice to do a bit of an audit like that. Yeah, it's not going to work out how you think it will.
Yeah. And isn't it nice to be proved wrong?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely, Artie. Yeah, a universe. Oh, prove me wrong.
In that sphere, definitely.
Yes.
Okay. And how long have you been back at Newcastle? Because I know you lived in Brighton, you've travelled the world. So how long have you been back at Newcastle?
I came back up to Newcastle in 2012. And so that's 8 years. Gosh, 8 years. And I've loved it. It's where I was born. And I left when I was about 19. And I travelled a lot. I travelled for about 5 or 6 years. And then I studied in Brighton, and I did a further study in Brighton, and then I started my career in education in Brighton. But I always came back in the holidays, we sort of every 6 or 7 weeks. So I've stayed very much connected to the Northeast and watched it change and develop and grow. We no longer wear cloth caps, and it's not full of coal, And if you've never been past Birmingham, everybody, I do urge you to come and visit. Come and visit up here. It's beautiful, beautiful sandy beaches, beautiful, quiet Northumberland, a real hidden gem. And then I lived in Oxford for 3 years, and that was fantastic. But I always had an urge to come back, and it was the right time to come back, and yeah, I haven't regretted it at all.
Well, it's lovely to hear.
Yeah,
lovely to hear. Okay, I think it's time to start the talk.
Okay.
So let me just welcome everybody who's joined us. We have Sarah with us. Sarah's beamed in, as they would say, from Newcastle. Sarah is an educator, and it's not just children, but adolescents. Interesting times if you think back to your own adolescence, things that you had to deal with, but now think of somebody who's mentoring you and what they'd see and how they see you and how they mentor you through that period. Some of the greatest influences are teachers for all of us. So somebody who's very powerful. I can say that about Sarah then, comfortably. Sarah is talking about, the title for tonight's talk is Practicing Self-Care Now. And Sarah's going to share her insights and thoughts. And then but it will be a short talk today. We're trying something different. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to have a longer question and answer session. A number of questions have come in. I can see questions are popping up now on the screen as well. So we're going to look at the questions that have come in already, and then add your questions as you send them through. And then there'll be a short meditation before we finish. So over to you, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So very nice to see you all, and thank you for inviting me. I've just actually had a lovely little half an hour, a couple of hours ago, with people in our street for a little garden party. So I hope you've also been able to enjoy a cup of tea with your neighbours, social distancing, of course, which I guess is one of the things about self-care. You know, we need people around us, and we need to be able to connect to the world around us. So we have levels of self-care. We have physical, we have emotional, we have mental, and that's really useful. I know there's been loads of ideas within the media and within the news, really, of how to take care of the self. You know, how to stay safe physically, how to keep the levels of anxiety and stress as low as possible. You know, ration your news, walk every day, exercise, write, be creative. And obviously it's clear that everyone has different circumstances, and some of us are alone, some of us are free, some of us are financially okay, some have responsibilities, some are working, some are not. Maybe some watching today are vulnerable physically, or a little bit older and need to ask for help. So we're all coming at this self-care, I think, from different situations. One of the things I was recognizing for myself, it's been a good opportunity, really, to take an audit, because I suspect that for most of us, if I already was looking after myself, if I was already able to care for myself and I had a good balance, then, you know, probably that has tipped into this particular situation. So maybe I'm still able to do that. And then if I was never really able to care for myself well, and we'll look at what that means, then maybe it's been a good time to really, really realize maybe I've been pushed so much in this particular situation that it has become quite extreme. So I suppose then, you know, only we know, the title of today is Self-Care Now. But one thing I have come to see, and, you know, just chatting to Artie there earlier, self-care is about building up habits and setting really, really good intentions for myself. And if that's the case, then yeah, not just self-care now, but self-care for the future. You know, what kind of things do I want to think about for the future? I suppose as well, you know, one of the most important things that we can do, I mean, it's clear and it's logical. If I can't keep my own energy up, if I can't keep my own feelings calm, if I can't keep my own good health, then I can't really care for anyone else properly. So it might look like I can care for others, and you know, I might be able to care for others to such an extent, maybe I'm pretending, you know, who am I fooling? Inside I'm actually feeling a little bit resentful or really low of energy. Maybe I keep suppressing my own needs. And I think we've probably all been through this. I can certainly say that for myself. It gets to a point where I keep saying yes, or I keep putting things off that I need to do, to a point where I feel quite resentful, and maybe something blows, or I end up losing my temper, or I shout, or I go home and, you know, stomp around a lot. So clearly I'm not caring for myself. I am actually caring for others more. I don't have a good balance. Or maybe I'm just listening to what they're asking me more than I'm listening to what I am asking myself. So I think self-care is also about being honest with myself, you know, turning around and facing my own needs. And I've seen some of the questions already, which is, you know, how do I know the difference between being selfish and selfless? And maybe we unpack that in the half an hour to come, I suppose. I think as well that the thing about self-care is that if we think about the idea that, again, as selfish and selfless, often it's dependent on what other people might think of me. So, you know, I'll help you, but I'll help you a bit, but I won't help you past that. Or I can give you this much time, but after that I can't really give you that time. And, you know, we know in terms of our relationships that there might be emotional tugs here and there might be emotional blackmail coming up, there might be all sorts of things that people are telling me about how I should care for them, which tips us again into that whole I'm listening to you more than I'm listening to me, and the pressures that come and the influences that come, others who watch us look after ourselves and say, well, you know, what do you think you're doing? I think I need a bit more attention. You need to give me a little bit more of that. So I think there's probably a little dance to be done in terms of self-care. And as I've said just there now, for me, it comes back to who am I listening to? Am I listening to other people more than I'm listening to myself? Am I valuing what others say more than I value myself? And I think that's a really crucial part. And I'm not talking about not listening to society's rules. You know, obviously we need to do the right thing and make the right choices. I'm not talking about real selfishness or anarchy or not following social rules. I am talking about quietly nurturing the self, as opposed to putting that last on the list, really. So, you know, self-care is about taking responsibility for myself. And if I am listening to them more, then, you know, maybe I need to reset. Maybe I need to recalibrate that. And if that is how you are feeling, if that is how I am feeling, then there are several ways I might want to do that. One is to look at habits, look at my own biases, look at my own mindsets. A good way to do that in terms of self-development is just to go online and have a look at, you know, what does psychology tell me about self-care? What does it tell me about valuing myself? What does it tell me about valuing others? What does research out there in the field of self-care tell me that I don't know already? So, you know, there's always something we can learn. So for me, it's when I'm learning about something new, or I haven't quite got something clear in my mind about how it works, or something's niggling me, or I'm feeling I'm a bit influenced by something. This is the time for free information. Let me go and find out. Let me pick up the book, do the research for myself, and find out what is it that's going on in me. And there are loads of psychology forums out there. You know, pick the best and learn what is it that is blocking me from looking after myself. But always, 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 there's the theory and then there's the practice. So I might, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. Yep, I understand that. I am letting them influence me, and there's a bit of emotional blackmail going on here, and I can't seem to say no, and it's making me feel guilty. You know, what is that in me? Do I need to belong? Do I need to be approved of? Do I think they'll reject me if they won't love me anymore? Is that why I'm saying yes? Is that why I'm carrying on giving them time or other things, when really I should be keeping a little bit for myself, energy, time, emotional well-being? So there's always somewhere to go these days that will help me understand the dynamics of looking after myself or not, and what's going on in the background. But my own practice also now involves this practical side. I need to have something in place that allows me to take that understanding and bring it down into my feelings. So that for me is meditation. And of course, you're logged on to a seminar hosted by Inner Space, which looks at this theory of the self, understanding the self, and then backs it up with this practical skill. It's a skill set which involves meditation. So what I then do is I sit with myself, I sit with what I've learned, and I bring it down into my feelings. And you know, how do I feel about that? Is that really what is going on? And I suppose that can bring up all sorts of, if you're new to meditation, that can bring up all sorts of chaotic thoughts. Oh my goodness, I don't want to look at that because that is too close to home, and that would mean I might need to change. And I don't want to change because that person that is, you know, that I need in my life might not like me anymore. They might not approve of me anymore. If I start to say, well, you know, I think I need a bit of time for myself, there might be a reaction to that. So quite interestingly, meditation can bring up, paradoxically, not so much peace, but peacelessness. But what I've seen is if you stick with it and stick with it and stick with it, then actually the peace, the calm, a deeper sense of self, a clarity about life and my place in it, these things actually become a lot stronger in ourselves. So even though there might be other messages that come up that I don't like, the practice of meditation, a new skill, let me sit with myself, let me sit with myself, let me get to know myself, and not be frightened of that. And again, let me find things online, or when lockdown happens, let me go to places, let me go to groups, let me ask people, let me sit with others, and find out, you know, what does that feel like? Is it okay to feel like that? So I think for me, this aspect of self-care is one, the theory. What does that mean? And if I don't feel I'm doing it, if some of these questions that are coming up are, I'm not sure, then let me find out the theory of that. Let me see what other people are saying. But it's not enough just to know. You know, you could come and sit here and share. We could swap places actually, and you could share what you know. We could all sit and share what we know. But actually putting it into practice and deepening and enriching and widening and broadening what I know into applying it in my life and seeing what comes back, and choosing to steer my thoughts towards beauty. We were talking about that earlier, towards what's possible, what's a better outcome, what would be you know, what would be a better set of thoughts than the ones I'm having. So this is the place of meditation. So both together. And I remember very early in my own practice, somebody telling me that as much time as I spend reading or learning the theory, I should spend as much time meditating. And you know, I'm a girl who is very much about teaching and learning. That's my business, it's my profession. And I would gobble up books and yeah, oh yeah, I love the learning. So that might be about 5 hours a day. And I suddenly thought, oh, I'm meditating 5 hours a day? I don't think so. The same amount as I'm doing the theory. But actually, I've come to see that just top and tailing my day with this sitting with myself and maybe little moments throughout the day. I noticed Covent Garden Online has got these lovely little short morning and lunchtime meditations. These are ideal for being with myself. So caring for myself, valuing myself enough that I would be with me as much as I give myself to others. Let me bring myself back to me. So very nice. I don't know, that's probably about our 10 minutes to begin with. Whether Artie wants to start asking some questions. I know they've been coming in.
Okay, so let's start the questions that have come in so far for you.
Okay.
All right, here's the first one. If I'm short of time, what one self-care activity or thing can I do that will make a difference?
Yeah. So short of time for me might mean short of time for somebody else, but if we go with the shortest of times, breathe, stretch, stop, even just a couple of minutes, 5 minutes to breathe. I mean, how many do you actually stretch your body out? You know, we store a lot of tension in the body, and you know, can I take just 5 minutes? I don't know, you could try it right now actually, if you're sitting in your chair or wherever you are, you know, just a huge big stretch and a stretch and a big deep breath. I mean, that in itself is really, really valuable.
Why?
Use your time wisely. I was going to say meditate. I guess it depends how much short time is short. Certainly what's been, sorry Artie, just I was just going to say that you know, what's been coming from national self-care, I suppose, is, you know, cut your time looking at the news, cut your time looking at everything that's going around about the coronavirus. You know, keep up to date if you need to. I need 5 minutes to read the headlines every day, but you know, the rest of that time that I have, prioritize, stretch, breathe. Yeah, get up half an hour early, go for a walk. Those things I would say are really important.
Mm-hmm. Why is taking a deep breath and having a long stretch, a big stretch, so important? What does it do?
Yeah. So, I mean, we know, again, physiologically, we store a lot of tension in our body. And I suspect that if I'm sitting around or lying around or I'm inside all the time, then that's going to be, you know, the sort of folding over, the hunched over, the closed down, the anxiety maybe is going to be exacerbated. So I'm going to get oxygen in my lungs. It's going to flood my body with oxygen. I'm going to get oxygen in my brain. It's going to flood my brain with oxygen. I'm going to open up my whole cells. I'm going to, I suppose, remind myself that I am alive. I am a thinking, feeling being. Even a very short mindful practice. I am a thinking, feeling being of life, and I am alive, and all is well. Today, at this minute, all is well. So just a real shift in my attitude in a very short time we can do that. Yeah.
Great. This person has been using affirmations. But she's asking, how do you use affirmations for self-care? And how do you believe in those affirmations, especially if you're not very good at being caring towards yourself?
Yeah. Affirmations are beauty. So affirmations are about reminding myself that there's another way to think. Affirmations are about, let me use them to remind myself there is another choice of thought, and there is another way to be, and there is another way to feel. So that's one of the main things for me about affirmations. In a second I read that and it reminds, yes, I do have a choice. I absolutely understand what you're saying about, you know, if I don't believe them or I'm not really in the mood, is it worth it? And there are lots of schools of thoughts. One is fake it till you make it, in the sense that if you just keep reading and you keep reading, at some point in your memory, at some point in those habits, that memory, that habit will lodge, and at some point that will pop up. So if it says, I don't know, I'm thinking of an affirmation now, positive thinking is will make my life better. I don't know, I've just plucked that out of nowhere. Who's to say that's the truth or not? But if I keep reading that, and I keep reading, if you've got all these little cards, even if I'm just reading it and it doesn't get any further down than on this level of thought, then I am just, my eyes and my thoughts are seeing something different to how I might normally think. What I would say with affirmations is that, you know, if you also meditate or reflect or pray, you know, use them in that quiet time. Bring them into feelings. I do see that, you know, I do get asked this question quite a lot, and I think people keep, again, on this intellectual level. We love knowing things, but I probably have to sit quietly and bring it into my heart. And often you can turn the wording around to the I, to the first person. I choose to think positively. I choose to open my heart. I choose to see the best in others. Like any new habit, like any new way of thinking, I might be up against my old ways of thinking. So I need to keep at that. I need to keep going with that. And it can, you know, it can feel like then they're not working. But I suppose the question I would then ask myself is, have I sort of picked it up and put it down, picked it up, put it down? I've also seen that we often pick affirmations up when things are going wrong. I wait till things are going wrong before I do that in a work, or I look at those cards. So can you keep that practice of looking at those things when you're feeling great? Because when you're feeling great, your energy is always up. It's already up, you know. You've got quite a high level of consciousness, you know, positive, beneficial, compassionate, all of these words that are very much in the self-reflective and self-development field. If I'm already feeling good, then let me feel even better. But if I'm not feeling so good, and I'm trying now to get my mind to another place or to feel better, that's going to be a bit of a struggle. So, you know, let me still use these affirmations even when I'm already feeling great. And then, yeah, that's good.
Thank you. Okay, here's one that will tickled me a little bit. Can self-care become indulgent? And if so, what are the signs that you're going from self-care to just being indulgent?
Yeah. I suppose it comes back to this whole idea that, you know, what do you mean by self-care and what do you mean by indulgent? Indulgent to me means I come home and I have silence and I have space, and I'm restoring my mental well-being, and I'm refreshing my emotional well-being, and I'm re-energizing myself in that silence and in that space. For other people, it might be that they go shopping and they like that feeling of well-being that just comes with a feeling of abundance, perhaps, where they can go and buy things, and you know, they have they finished work and it's like, I'm free now, let me go out and be with everybody else. So who's to say it is indulgent or not? So maybe for me, an indulgence is I come home and I spend a couple of hours in this silence and solitude and a very simple life, which I love. And maybe indulgence is when I don't, you know, I stay there for a couple of days and people are asking me for help, and I say, no, I'm just going to stay in this comfort zone. And maybe, you know, the other side of that is if I use, I'm just, again, one example, you know, if I like to go shopping, it allows me to feel better about myself. I'm out and about with people, and it allows me to relax. Then, of course, maybe buying one thing that I know I can afford, and that is okay for me to buy, is fine. Indulgence is when I buy several things, I really can't afford them. You know, indulgence is a sort of tipping point that we talk about, as maybe a little bit too much of something that is not so beneficial. But, you know, one thing I have really come to see is actually challenged in my own self-development is the use of language. What means something for me does not necessarily mean the same for others. And I am unmindful of that. What does it mean to be indulgent? Is it indulgent to take, a lovely hot bath and where you've got essential oils in there and you've got candles? We often have that image of indulgence. It's a treat to the self. But actually, I would say that that's self-care. So I think it's interesting, let me understand what does it mean to me to indulge. To me personally, to Sarah, it's when I've tipped a balance and I've become a little bit irresponsible. But what does indulgence mean to you? Is it that it's jumped over into not quite responsible, like I've bought 7 jumpers instead of 1? Or does it mean I've had a beautiful, quiet, relaxing bath with candles and I'm feeling great after that? So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Interesting, no? There is no real line there, except, have I tipped it? It's very nice. What are the qualities needed for self-care? Can you pick them out? And when you're caring for yourself or for others, I guess more with others, can empathy and sympathy be without emotional exhaustion?
Yeah, great question.
There's another part to this. Somebody's just sent it in, but I think it goes with this question already. People have a lot of expectations from their mothers, and even mothers have expectations of how they should be a good mother. And often mothers have this headspace that everybody has to be looked after first and then themselves. And that's a very difficult trap not to fall into when you are a giving person. Can you pick that apart as well? What are your thoughts on that? So both of those things, caring for others without getting exhausted, and not slipping into a trap, even though you're a giving, generous, kind person.
Yeah. I might say something a bit about the sort of sympathy and empathy that you mentioned there. I feel that it's good in a way to have sympathy. I mean, these are maybe shared feelings. There's a connectedness there. It's about relationship dynamics. We recognize that someone is sad. We might have compassion or concern for them. But my feeling is, we have to be careful not to go down with the ship, as it were. So let me have sympathy, which means I recognize your sadness and I recognize that you might need some help, or I might have concern, but if that allows me to help you or to just sit with you, not necessarily do anything, but just to be there for you, then this is great. So that's about definitely the qualities of caring and compassion. Empathy, I think, is also there. It's about being able to put myself in your shoes, but maybe I absolutely recognize I don't have to go to that space. If you're feeling really, really sad, my feeling is that, maybe sympathy might err on the side of feeling sad with you, whereas empathy might err on the side of I recognize that you're sad, but I don't have to feel that sadness myself to understand what you're feeling. So these things, again, there's a really fine line between being influenced by what you're feeling. And I suppose the little itch in the middle there is, if I don't express sadness with you, will you think I don't care? So maybe I should express, I should be all out crying with you, and I should show that I am sad, because maybe you'll think I don't care. And I think that's a huge thing for everybody, the sort of expectation that if you don't express that you're feeling the same as me, then maybe you don't care. But care is not the same as worry. Care is not the same as anxiety. Care is not the same as sadness. So just because I'm showing anxiety and worry and sadness does actually not mean that I do care. I could get pretty absorbed in my own anxiety and worry, and then I have no energy to care for you at all. We both go down, and where does that leave us? So I think that's an interesting dynamic in relationships that I could explore and research. Do I feel obliged to shed tears while you do? Do I feel obliged to run around and do everything for you? In the case of the mother, as you mentioned, do I feel obliged to apologize that I couldn't be better, I couldn't do that better, I couldn't lift you up when you needed lifted up? Now that I know a little bit more about myself and human dynamics, I would say no. The best thing I can do is to stay in my position of care, which is I need to be full energetically. I need to be full. I need to be mentally alert and clear. I need to be emotionally strong and caring, and I need to understand what compassion means. I need to be patient. I need to be, there's a sort of saying within self-development about loving and detached, actually. So I don't mean cut off, but detached means I can stand back a little bit. I can see what you need, and I can hold my own power. I can hold my own strength. I can stay a little bit, away from the pull of the heart, and then I am really much more able to help where it's needed. I can physically help. I can mentally and emotionally hold a space for you to do what you need to do. For me, this means I am taking responsibility for myself, and it means I am not taking responsibility for you because that's not my job. But it means I can still hold a space for you to do what you need to do, to be how you need to be. But I'm also not influenced, I don't get influenced by that. When I think about parenting or mothering, as you say, it's an interesting question because I work with children, and I do see that loop. I feel we put a lot, this is just me from a professional angle, I suppose. I see a lot of the work and the funds go to helping children who are who need emotional or mental support in that way. But it's absolutely apparent to me that actually what we need to do is put a lot of funding and a lot of help and lots of nurture groups to the mums who maybe they weren't able to nurture, or just the choices they had to make at that time, or the circumstances in which they had to bring up their children, and the choices that they were presented with. They are still working through those things. So I suppose what I'm saying is that it's a bigger question than just me and my mum, or me as a mother, or me as a child. It is how we are with society, anyway. And then that brings me back to, I can't change the world. I can't fix things that I would love to fix. The only thing I can do is come back to myself, sit with myself, restore my own inner self-power, restore my own inner balance. So you asked about the qualities, so there we go. Self-power, balance, compassion, patience, strength, just understanding what I have inside of me, my own potential. Let me come back to that. And then the choices I will make will be the best choice I can make. My intention will be the best intention. And I will stop feeling I have to be responsible for you. I suppose on a last note, it's that whole, well, you can, take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I have definitely seen that with children and young people, and with myself. Somebody can tell me, give me the best advice, but until I am ready to change, until I am emotionally strong enough to take it, I can't hear it. So if I am, so two ways, if I am trying to help somebody and they are not in a space of being able to listen, then I am wasting my time and energy. Let me hold their hand and make them a cup of tea and use my own qualities of patience and stability and balance, which I take responsibility for. And then maybe when everything is settled, we can have discussion, I can be the role model. I've probably answered lots of different things from all sorts of different areas, but
yeah, because this actually, what you were talking about actually went into another question, which I think you've answered, but if you have any further thoughts, just add to it. The question that's come through is, how can I convince my 13-year-old daughter to self-care? Eat right, exercise, etc. So I don't know about a 13-year-old. I have never been able to convince anybody, but is there a way around this that you can add?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I have a niece. She's about that age, and she hasn't been outside during this whole situation since lockdown. Well, she has been outside in the garden, but she hasn't wanted to go out for walks and things. And I understand why. It's an interesting age. Fortunately, she has a beautiful garden, and she dances. So she dances around she leaps around the living room, and she's fit and she's healthy, and she's got parents who care very deeply for her. So she's not sitting there in a state of worry or anxiety. But she hasn't. She's decided, I'm not going out there while this is all happening. No problem. And what I've learned from that is actually, so, are there other things that I can help my child with? Can I see that there is the right food in the house, and maybe there isn't so much of the, in inverted commas, wrong food in the house? If I am the adult and I have to take responsibility, then what am I doing in that sense? Maybe this comes back to that thing about indulgence. Am I indulging their habits because I don't want the repercussions of the mood swings, So how much am I letting their behavior and their influence affect mine? I would also say that, am I being the right example? Am I eating the right food? Am I exercising? Am I doing all of that? And then maybe there's a space to just let them be and know that they are loved. And teenager, these are interesting years as a teenager. Am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choices for me? Am I leading by example? And then only you will know, in terms of, if you know yourself well, and you know your daughter well or your son well, then you will know where the line is. Are you indulging that because it's easier not to? Anyone who's got children, who works in education, will know that that's an interesting line to go down, because I make a rod for my own back. Am I talking it out? Am I keeping my heart open? Am I keeping all channels open? Yeah, again, I'm not an expert. You could have a look at forums, see what other people are doing. You can't make anybody do anything in that sense, but I can lead by example. And then you've done the best that you can do. Take all, any food away, fill the house with good food, and make sure they, they stick their head out the window and breathe. Why not? Every Thursday night, I've been hanging out the window to clap the carers. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Any tips on exploring what works well for you in terms of self-care? Should you try things until you find something that works well for you? Are there any particular steps that you would pick out for self-care? And what does it really mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the literal sense is caring for the self. So once again, only you really know if you were doing that. And the dominant thing for me is always, if I'm distracting myself and I'm busy and I'm running here and I'm running there and I'm doing this for you and I'm writing that and I'm working and I'm doing all of the doing, I will never really know whether I'm looking after myself. I will only know that inside of me there will be feelings of resentment, impatience, anger, frustration. If I'm having more of those than I am of calm, clear headspace, then I am probably not caring for myself enough. There are all sorts of influences on us. There are all sorts of things we have to be doing. And once that tips, once I listen to all of those things more than I listen to me, I will feel resentment, impatience, all of those things that I mentioned. Self-care is about taking responsibility for myself, making sure that I have a good balance. People often say, oh, I don't have time. And then I say, okay, well, how much time do you spend on your device? And then we all, if there's whoever's in the group, we all roar with laughter and nod our heads. Yeah, I do have time. I just choose to spend it in other things, in other ways. If I really know it's important, then I will step away from my device and I will go for the walk. I will step away from whatever it is I know might not help me, and I will go for help. And of course, we're talking about a huge range of things in all of our lives here. I'm just thinking about the beginning of that question, Artie. Can you remind me what? Pick out the steps I needed.
Yes, sorry, yeah. I'm still on mute.
Yes.
Any tips on exploring what works well for you in terms of self-care? Yeah. Should you just keep trying until you find something that works well for you?
Yeah. Well, why not? Why not keep trying? If I go to a gym or if I go to a Zumba class and I don't really enjoy it, I wouldn't go back. I might go to yoga. Although I have to say, from a personal level, I like both. If I go for a walk around the streets of a city and I don't like it, then let me find the countryside, or let me like both. I mean, why not keep looking till something really hits the spot? Probably in terms of self-development, I know that over the years what I've learned is I can get a little bit addicted to, well, this is just something I've learned with going to different groups really and meeting with different people. I think we can get addicted to just keep asking questions but not actually do anything with the answers. I get addicted to asking the question, and I get addicted to the knowledge. I love information. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'll go with that. But I don't actually do anything with it. I don't apply it in my life. So then I think, oh, well, maybe I could, that's okay, but it's not actually working. So maybe I'll try that. But sometimes it's because I haven't taken that information and applied it. So I know all about meditation, but I haven't actually sat down and meditated. Or I know all about, so for me, meditation is very much the where it all hangs in terms of being able to understand myself and really care for the self. So I'll use meditation as an example. People tell me about it and I think, okay, that's what you do, and maybe you do that, and maybe it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you just have a little go. And I have a little go for a few minutes and I can't do it, so I give up. So I go somewhere else and I think, okay, instead of meditating, I'll go running, which can be a form of meditation for many people. So we are a little bit addicted to having a little go, parking it, and having a little go at something else, parking it, having a little go at something else, parking it. And I think that's also to do, neurologically speaking, because we are not very good at concentrating anymore. In our lives, we can go anywhere and have anything immediately. I can go online and in 5 minutes I can have booked something, and the next day it's at my door. I don't have to wait for anything. I don't have to invest much time, maybe. I don't even see the money. It comes in my bank and goes out again without me even seeing it. I remember doing a little bit of research a long time ago. I did a master's in applied psychology, and a lot of these ideas were fantastic. But it was this idea that, actually a reality. In things like TV programs and films, where they, if you go back, I don't know if you watch any old reruns of old things from maybe 20 years ago, they feel really slow. They feel really slow and a little bit, where's the action? Even though at the time they would have been very exciting. And that's because the speed at which films and documentaries and all sorts of things are put together, the reel and the second that they change the picture is much, much quicker. So let's say, I'm plucking a number out of nowhere, I can't really remember, but let's say 20 years ago, the change of the picture on your screen, let's say it was about 5 seconds. So let's count that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you'd cut to somebody else. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you cut to somebody else. So that was then. So now I think the average time, again, it's something like this, but you can have a look for yourself. It's something like 1.5 to 2 seconds. So 1, 2, cut, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So you've got a really, really quick change in front of your eyes, in front of your ears. So your brain is having to process these things really, really quickly, a lot, depending on how much time you watch TV, and only you will know. So I was looking at in response to some of the research I was doing for children. So again, the games that everyone's playing, but we know that as adults, the stimulus comes into us really, really quickly, and that is affecting the wiring in our brain. It's affecting how we process things. Whatever goes on in my thoughts affects my feelings. Whatever goes on in my feelings affects my actions. So you might say, I can't sit still. We are really fidgety. I don't breathe, or there's tension. All of these things are because everything in the world is just going so fast. And one of the examples of that is what's happening on our screen. And when I followed that trail, anyway, that was my own bit of research, it was clear to me that that expresses itself in us. I'll have a bit of that, okay? And now I'll have a bit of that, okay? And now I'll go and look for that, and now I'll have a bit of that. And none of it's quite enough to keep us satisfied. So we are now sort of designed to consume, whether it be food or information or something new. What's new? What's new? What's new? What's new? So my own response to that is, oh, how lovely if there's nothing new, actually. Let me just step back and sit quietly and let everything settle and have nothing new. Because with all this newness comes complications. I have to process it all. I process that and process that. and I have to process it really quickly now and come to some decision. So let me just step back and stop. Let me have nothing new for 5 minutes. Let me have nothing new. Let me have no images coming on my screen. Let me have no noise. Let me just relax. So again, part of that research was looking, interestingly, at the way of silence. How could silence contribute to relaxation in the brain and rest in the brain and beneficial behavior in the brain? And that was the dissertation. Was actually, I need to stop all of this stimulus in my eyes, in my ears, on my taste buds, what I'm doing, and the role of sort of silence and stillness as an antithesis of all the doing and the noise, So yeah, great to find new things, great to stick with them for a while, great to know if they don't work, let me find something new, but let me be alert. Is it just for the sake of it? Like, I'm just designed to consume, so I just keep consuming. Yeah. Stop.
Wow, thank you. There's loads more questions and we are running out of time.
Yes, we
I didn't expect that actually, but there you go. So I'm going to give you these two things. The first part of the question is, do we need boundaries when it comes to self-care? I assume that we do, because at that point we also have to say no sometimes to people or things or activities or opportunities. So how do you say no without offending?
Yeah, these are great questions. I was thinking, they need we need another 7 hours, don't we, really? In brief, if that's possible, yes, we do need boundaries. For me, it comes back to understanding myself. So I will, when I know who I am, what I like, what I can do, what I can't do, where my boundaries are, then I will be better able to care for myself and others. So definitely the boundaries come when I know who I am and I'm honest with myself. And that will only happen, I think, when I take time out to sit with myself, away from every other influence, all those voices in my head that are everybody else, and let me sit long enough for them just to fade away. And then actually, what do I think about that? What's that? So that coming up, so that's that bit. And then I think from my own experience is that when I know myself in that way, then I can say no. There's always a way. There's always a way to say, I love your idea, and at any other time I might be able to go with that, but for the moment I'm going to say no. Let me know how you do. It sounds fantastic. Or, there's always a way to encourage somebody if they're asking something of me. There's always a way to say, I love what you're asking, but I can't help it the minute. And I can only say that with the right voice, because my voice is my intention. So I can only use that voice rather than actually no, not really, no. So that voice is not going to work. Or, oh, no, not really. That voice is not going to work. Oh, all right then. That voice is definitely not going to work. So, I have to practice the voice, and it comes because I am honest and true to myself. I am full of love for you. I care about you. And maybe if you can wait a little while, maybe I can say yes. It comes from, I don't depend on what you say for me to love me. I don't depend on what you think of me for me to value myself. So these are Artie and everybody, these are big questions. Lots more in there. Big questions. Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, this is the last big question, and I promise to stop after that because we are running out of time. So this is the last one, but I think it's important.
Yeah.
Self-care is part of self-care, allowing others to help you. And so then how do you ask for help without diminishing yourself?
Yes. Oh, great. So this is a very good question, because this is definitely one of my lessons, actually. And I have prided myself, if that's the right word, on being, you know, a strong, independent woman. I'm out there and I'm doing it. And I don't need any help from anybody. So, but I have learned over the years that actually I want to connect with others, and I want to be helped, and to make that connection. It's okay to have help. So that these are quite, again, I'm not sure I'm going to answer this in any way, shape or form very well, but in the short time we've got. 1, yes, it's okay to have help. 2, only when I know myself, we're back to that one, will I be comfortable in asking for help. And 3, I think there's a time and a place to ask, and maybe that's where we don't quite feel comfortable asking. I watch all of my colleagues running around and they're really, really busy. So I am really mindful of when I ask for help. And I book it in advance. I say, do you have 20 minutes on Tuesday afternoon? Could it be about 3 over a cup of tea? Can we sit down? I need to talk about this. So, you know, again, it's a boundary kind of help. I'm asking them, and I'm leaving it open for them to say no. So there's no emotional manipulation going on. In my voice, I am full of self-respect. I am not asking for help from a place of victim. This is terrible. I can't do this. Oh, it's not coming from that. So I am not compromising them. And I think this is probably quite a good place to start looking at that, since we won't have time to say much more now. You know, what is my intention? And where am I coming from? If it's a personal relationship, yeah, you know, again, a sort of an interesting dynamic in self-development is this thing called humility. And I always used to associate that, you know, if you look in the dictionary, it has a connotation of being humble and being walked on and being a doormat. But actually in the field of self-development and understanding the self, it is a real strength that I can actually say, yeah, you know, I need a bit of help, and it does not diminish me. And it only does not diminish me because I am coming from this very clear, honest place inside. And I want to learn. I want to learn now. And I can only learn it if I ask for help, if I ask for that information. So, yeah. There's a space to ask for help, and let me know myself before I ask for it. Yeah.
Thank you. It was a bit, the last couple of questions were very tough. I'm sorry. Not them on you, but thank you for.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. I've been thanking you without that. Sorry. So now, Sarah, would you be kind enough to lead us into a short meditation just to sum up this evening and anchor those feelings? And then I'll come back to say bye.
Great. So let's go for 2 minutes. And that's all we need sometimes to feel. So let me breathe. So I just sit quietly and take a deep breath in and breathe out. And I just become aware of the stillness and silence around me. And I remind myself, I am a thinking, feeling being. I am a thinking, feeling being, valuable. And inside me is huge potential to care for myself in balance, huge potential for compassion, huge potential to understand myself. When I do this, when I sit down quietly, talk to myself in this way, nurturing, then all those qualities rise to the surface. I see my strengths. I understand what's possible. I get to know myself. And in this knowing the self, there is great courage to express who I am, to live who I am, and to care for who I am. Nice feeling. And I take a last deep breath in. And I have a little stretch. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm getting requests that you come back again and explore some of those questions with us again. So we will be looking at your diary, and thank you so much for that. Thank you very much. Good night. And this is Artie on behalf of Inner Space in Covent Garden. Hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.